Saints Row 2022 is one of those games where you don't just ask, why did this bomb? You end up asking, how did it manage to hurt the whole franchise this badly? Because this reboot didn't just get clowned online. It launched rough, got called polarizing by the company's CEO, got shuffled internally, and then the studio behind it, Volition, was shut down in August 2023. So yeah, today's question is brutal. Did Saints Row Reboot deserve the flop, or did it get set up to fail? Saints Row used to be the series that survived being the loudest weirdo in the room. GTA is playing it straight, Saints Row shows up dressed like a clown, holding a rocket launcher, and it somehow works. But the 2022 game tried to reboot the whole thing, with a new cast, a new city, a fresh start energy, and fans basically responded with, fresh start, this tastes like Diet Saints Row. Even Embracer, the parent company, straight up admitted the reception did not meet the full expectations and left the fanbase partially polarized. And that quote matters because it tells you something. They knew it didn't land. So here's the simplest way I can put it. The reboot feels like it was trying to be 3 different games and it wasn't great at any of them. It's not grounded enough to satisfy people who miss Saints Row 2's gritty crime chaos. It's not unhinged enough to satisfy people who love Saints Row the 3rd going full Saturday morning crime cartoons. And it's not polished enough to compete with the open world crowd who already have a backlog that could last until retirement. So what you end up with is this weird middle child identity crisis. The humor's there sometimes, but it often feels like it's doing a safe impression of Saints Row humor, instead of being the we don't care if this is stupid kind of funny the series was built on. And the characters, look, I'm not gonna do the internet thing where we act like every new character is automatically trash, kind of lazy, and also the easiest route. But the bigger issue is that the crew doesn't carry the fantasy. Saints Row works when you buy into the gang as a crew you'd actually follow into chaos. This time, a lot of players didn't connect, and when the characters don't land, every mission feels longer, every joke feels louder, and every cutscene feels like it's asking you to clap. Now let's talk about the thing that really poisons the game. Launch date. If your game launches rough, the internet doesn't wait for the 2-year redemption arc. It brands you immediately. And Saints Row's launch reputation became buggy, janky, inconsistent, and sometimes straight up broken feeling. Even outside critics, not just angry fans, called out crashes and problems early on. I'm not even going to try to say this name, but that word, Ryder, literally mentions multiple crashes in a short play session. Volition did keep patching. There were reports of major bug fix pushes, including talk of over 200 bug fixes in one update window, plus promises of ongoing quality of life changes. But here's the cold truth. First impressions are a one-way door. Once people decide your open world game feels unfinished, they don't keep checking back. They uninstall and move on. But how did it sell? This is where it gets interesting. Embracer's own reports said that financially the game performed in line with management's expectations in that quarter, and by mid-October 2022, it had been played by over 1 million players. So how do you go from played by over 1 million people, expected to generate a positive ROI, to the studio getting moved under Gearbox and then eventually shut down? Because the bar for a reboot isn't, did we technically make some money? The bar is, did we rebuild trust? Did we set up a future? And did we create momentum? And the CEO of Embracer literally called the reception very polarizing and said he hoped for a greater reception. That's corporate speak for, we expected this to hit harder and it didn't. To Volition's credit, they didn't abandon it immediately. There was a 2023 roadmap with the Heist and the Hazardous campaign DLC, a new district, Sunshine Springs, for everyone, and multiple quality of life updates, plus more content drops across May, July, and August. That is real support. But the problem is, that roadmap reads like something you do when you're trying to repair a launch narrative, not something you do when your game is flying. And in 2023, the gaming world was moving at warp speed. If you weren't dominating the conversation, you were getting buried under the next release, the next drama, the next must-play that shows up in each your lunch. So, did it deserve the flop? Here's my answer. Yes. The version that launched deserved the backlash. Not because the devs are evil, not because new thing bad, not because of whatever culture war nonsense people tried to attach to it. It deserved to flop because it committed the worst sin an open world reboot can commit. It felt like a downgrade. A reboot is supposed to feel like cleaner systems, tighter missions, sharper identity, better moment-to-moment fun. Instead, Saints Row Reboot often felt like it was chasing what Saints Row used to be without fully understanding why it worked. But, and this is important, I don't think the franchise deserved to die for it, because under the mess, you can still see pieces of a fun sandbox. You can see a team trying to juggle tone, modern expectations, and a legacy fanbase that all wanted different things. And if you want proof that somebody still thinks Saints Row can come back, as recently as late 2025, there was chatter reported about the original Saints Row design director pitching a possible prequel concept, so the brand isn't forgotten, it's just damaged. If Saints Row ever returns, I think it needs one of two paths. Option A, back to crime but with bite. Grounded enough to feel like a gang story again, but still funny, still satirical, still chaotic. And option B, full embrace of insanity, but polished. If you're going to be ridiculous, you need gameplay that feels tight, not janky. Comedy doesn't land when the gunplay feels like it's fighting you. Either way, the next Saints Row can't be middle of the road, because the middle is where reboots go to die. Alright, your turn. Did Saints Row Reboot deserve to flop, or do you think it got dragged way harder than it deserved because the internet already wanted blood? And if Saints Row comes back, which route do you want? Saints Row 2 style crime routes, or Saints Row 3 style chaos? Drop it in the comments. I kinda wanna see how split this is.